Hello everybody and welcome back to Dollar Tree Dinners. My name is Rebecca. I don't think I've ever really introduced myself, but today I'm going to be sharing some really cheap and inexpensive meals you can make with Dollar Tree ingredients. And more specifically, we're going to take $10 and make 9 meals out of it. Dollar Tree is one of your best resources if you have a small amount of money to work with and you need that to get you more than just a couple of meals. Especially as a single, it can be really hard to find small packages or inexpensive items at a standard grocery store, but at Dollar Tree, where most items are $1.25, it's really easy to go in there with $10, pick out 8 items, and make a few days worth of meals out of it. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So just to give you an idea of the formula that I follow whenever I'm making these $10 videos so that you can come up with your own ideas, is that I go in and I try to pick out 2 items for breakfast. Last time it was eggs and toast, or eggs and bread. And then I pick out 3 items each for the other 2 meals. So those are kind of lunches and dinners used interchangeably. So in the last video, it was smoked sausage, broccoli, and the cheddar broccoli rice side. And then I also got flour tortillas, refried beans, and Spanish rice. Now, I wanted these meals to be incrementally different from the last time that I did this, so this time we're not using any beans or any rice, and we're also not using any eggs. So with that being said, let me show you what all I got for $10 at Dollar Tree. So $10 at Dollar Tree will get you 8 items out of their standard $1.25. Some stores have the plus section now, which does make things a little bit more challenging. But I got a box of penne pasta. Now the Dollar Tree boxes of pasta are actually 20 ounces and not a standard 16 ounces. So we should be able to get about 6 meals out of this. Then I have pasta sauce. I also have some dehydrated hash browns. Ideally, I would have gotten a bag of French fries or steak cut French fries, but this store didn't have any. So I got hash browns as a substitute. I also have a can of chili. I have their pepper and onion stir fry, which is one of my all-time favorite Dollar Tree vegetables. It's really versatile. I also have some Italian meatballs, some jalapeno Velveeta cheese. They also have a regular Velveeta cheese. And then I have some hot smoked sausage. You'll probably see this hot smoked sausage in a lot of Dollar Tree videos, because it's really hard to beat the price for the quantity that you get. This is 7 ounces, and the only other kind of bang for your buck meat item at Dollar Tree is probably the meatballs, and then of course hot dogs. So smoked sausage is a little bit better than hot dogs, and that's why a lot of us Dollar Tree foodies tend to gravitate towards the smoked sausage. So there's the food, and now let's get into the prep. First things first, the pepper stir fry. Mine has been thawed. I'm gonna drain off some of the extra liquid. You can cook off the extra liquid, as I have done several times in past videos, but if you have the time and means to thaw it in advance, it will save you a lot of extra cook time just by sticking it in your fridge overnight, and then drain it through a colander. I'm gonna go through and chop it down into smaller bits as well. Even just chopping it released a lot of extra liquid, so I'm gonna drain it a second time. I'm just gonna let it sit in the colander until I'm ready to use it. The next thing is to rehydrate our hash browns, because these are dehydrated. Again, I would have preferred to use steak cut French fries, so if you can get those, it'll be easier. It'll just save you this extra step. But otherwise, I'm gonna fill this up with hot water to the fill line. I'm gonna close it up and let it sit aside for about 12 to 15 minutes or so, as per the package instructions. I'm gonna boil up the entire box of penne pasta. There's a lot of information online about how to keep your pasta from boiling over, but unless you're using a big enough pot and a lot of water, like in this case, the pasta pretty much fills up the entire pot. So the water is gonna build up a pretty high level of starch, which is what creates the bubbles that actually boil over the sides of the pot. And those bubbles are quite strong because they have the strength of the starch. So the only trick that ever works for me to keep the pot from boiling over is to simply not boil it. And what I mean by that is bring it up to a boil, add in your pasta, and then reduce the heat to like medium high-ish, and just kind of keep it at this rolling low boil or rolling simmer for the duration of cooking the pasta. As with most of these videos, I am doing this meal prep style. So once the pasta is cooked, I'm gonna split it between 6 containers. If you want to keep your pasta from sticking, you can add a drizzle of oil to each of your meal prep containers. I'm doing about a ½ tablespoon to each. And just kind of toss that gently to coat the pasta in the oil. And we can set these aside for the moment while we prepare the hash browns. Once your hash browns are rehydrated, you can drain off any extra liquid, and then I'm gonna tell you right now that the instructions on the box are useless. Toss that to the side, drain off as much liquid as you can, and I'm gonna show you the right way to fry these up. For the hash browns, you'll need a pretty wide skillet over medium to medium-high heat, and you're gonna add a fairly liberal amount of oil. I'm gonna add about 1/4 cup. When your oil is preheated, you can scatter your hash browns on top and use a spatula to spread them out in a nice even layer on the bottom of the skillet. Set a timer for 6 minutes and then just walk away and let this do its thing for a while. All right, it's time to flip the hash browns. Now, again, we're throwing away the instruction on the box, which says to stir frequently. Instead, we're just gonna go through and a little bit at a time, flip our hash browns. Always flip, never stir when it comes to hash browns, and that will get you the crispiest results. So the key to good hash browns are patience, mostly, because you're gonna just set a timer and walk away from them, but also flipping them rather than stirring them. I'm gonna set another 6-minute timer, and then we're gonna do some other prep in the meantime. Look how deliciously brown those hash browns are. They would not get this brown if you follow the box instructions, I promise you that. Those look amazing and crispy. And you might be asking yourself, why go through the process of crisping them up if you're doing this as like a meal prep to be reheated? Obviously, they're not gonna be crispy when you reheat them in the microwave, but this is still flavor. All of this is like caramelization, it is flavor, it is texture. And even if they might not be crispy when they're reheated, that will still translate into our finished meal even after it has been microwaved, rather than just putting the raw, uncooked hash browns in the containers. I'm gonna split my hash browns between 3 of my meal prep containers. Let's talk about strategy here for a moment, because as you can see, at this point, I have prepped only the bases of my meals. So I have 6 containers here that just all have cooked pasta in them, and I have 3 containers that have hash browns in them. Now, what I'm gonna do now from here to the end of the video is prep the toppings that are gonna go on each one of these. And I do feel like this is probably too much pasta. I think I could have even made 8 meal preps out of this amount of pasta rather than just 6. So I could have added in like a can of Alfredo sauce or something like that and got like an extra 2 meals out of this for an extra $1. But I digress. My goal here is variety. And by prepping the bases, and now I'm gonna prep the toppings, will allow me to kind of do a little bit of mixing and matching with how I arrange the meal preps so that we're not eating the same thing every day for 3 days. One of the things I'm gonna be making is a meat sauce, and for this I'm actually going to use the meatballs to make a meat sauce. So I'm gonna cut these down into smaller pieces. And the reason I'm using meatballs here is because they are pre-seasoned, pre-flavored. So this has Italian seasonings in it. It's got cheese mixed into the meatballs. It is a mixture of chicken, pork, and beef. But for $1.25, it is a really good price and an easy way to make a meat sauce without having to buy a whole bunch of stuff. I have seen other people do this before, and sometimes they just put these meatballs in a food processor or a blender. I am chopping them by hand because I don't like to use appliances in these kinds of videos. But if you have a food processor or a blender, that would certainly make this job a little bit easier. I'm happy with that. I'm gonna set it aside until I'm ready to make my meat sauce. The only other real prep work to be done here is with these sausages, and you can really prep these any kind of way. I'm gonna cut them into rounds. You can also dice them. So first let's start with our sausage and vegetables. And pan fry those together in a skillet until they're starting to get brown. Once my sausage and peppers are browned up, I'm gonna divide this between some of my containers. So I'm gonna put some of it in with the hash browns, about a ½ cup into each one. I did end up dividing the pasta further. As you can see, it actually makes about 9 meals, not just 6. So I'm gonna do 2 of the sausage and pepper mixture in with the hash browns, and I'm also gonna do 2 of the sausage and pepper mixture into the pasta. Next up, we're gonna begin working on our meat sauce, and as you can see, I'm using the same skillet for each of these. That will just make cleanup a lot easier. I'm gonna start with my minced meatballs. I guess that's probably the best way of phrasing that. And once those are starting to brown up, I can add in my jar of pasta sauce and let that just heat through. So I'm also gonna divide that between my pasta dishes. I'm not gonna combine pasta sauce with hash browns, but I can put about a half cup of my meat sauce on each of these pasta meals, which just leaves the chili and the Velveeta cheese sauce. If you've never had chili on pasta, it is amazing, especially a chili cheese pasta. So here is what I'm gonna do with this. I still have one hash brown dish and I have 2 pasta dishes left to top. We don't really need to heat up the chili or anything like that. I'm just gonna put a half cup of chili on each of the pasta meals. The chili will be heated through when it gets heated in the microwave. And then the other chili portion is gonna be for our last hash brown over here. For the Velveeta cheese sauce, you can soak it in some hot water to help thin it out, but I still find it is quite thick. So in order to make it more of a sauce, as you can see, the stuff's really thick. I am gonna add a little bit of warm water to it to be able to stretch it a little bit further without diluting down the flavor too much. And of course, I'm using jalapeno Velveeta, but they do have a regular one as well if you don't like spicy. So a little bit of hot water at a time, just until I have the consistency that I'm looking for, which was about a 1/4 cup, it looks like. Now we have a nice cheese sauce. The majority of the cheese sauce is for these 2 smoked sausage pastas over here, but I am gonna add a spoonful to each of these chili pastas as well to make them like a chili cheese pasta. And I can add a little bit to the hash brown dish, again, to make chili cheese hash browns. You could even add them to the smoked sausage, but I did want to reserve the majority of it to use to make this kind of like a mac and cheese dish. I do have a little extra, so I can put some over here with the smoked sausage and hash browns. So with that, we were able to prep 12 meals with a $10 budget from Dollar Tree, which comes out to about 83 cents a meal. Now let's talk about storing and reheating. All of these can absolutely be frozen if you want to. I do recommend just storing them in the fridge. If you're gonna store them in the fridge, store them for up to 5 days in the fridge. Otherwise, if you don't think you'll eat them within 5 days, I would recommend freezing them. You don't want to put them in your fridge while they are still warm. You do want them to be cooled down pretty much the entire way before you store them either in your fridge or your freezer. So there's my 3 hash brown dishes, 5 spaghetti with meat sauces, 2 smoked sausage and cheese pastas, and 2 chili and cheese pastas. And of course, with the hash browns, we have 1 that has chili and cheese and 2 that have smoked sausage and cheese. So we have a really good variety of meals here. Of course, with the pasta meat sauce, I'm sorry. I know that people would get sick of eating this, you know, if you have 5 of these. But again, that's where the freezing can come in, because technically we got 3 bonus meals out of this. I only intended to make 10. So freeze these 3 and save them for a future week. And then essentially you have 3 breakfasts, 3 lunches, and 3 dinners, all for $10 plus 3 bonus meals for later on. I'm definitely most excited about these hash brown meals. Let's start with the chili cheese hash browns. So what I do is I pop a corner, and when I say pop a corner, I just mean lift one of the 4 corners so that it has ventilation. And then I'm gonna microwave this until it's heated through. Because mine are not refrigerated, that only took about 30 to 45 seconds. When you're heating them from the fridge, you're gonna wanna do a minute to a minute and a half. And if you're heating them from the freezer, I would thaw them first before microwaving. Otherwise, microwave them on defrost until they're thawed, and then microwave them to heat them up. Just get you a better general texture that way. This is the chili cheese hash browns. The great thing about this is that you can mix it all together, or you can eat them separately, or you can eat them separately and then mix it all together. So it kind of feels like you're having a couple of different variations of the same meal. That is fantastic. 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10. I'll give it a 9 out of 10, just so that I don't seem like I'm being over dramatic. It's really good. Let's do the smoked sausage mac pasta, because actually I didn't intend to make this one. This is kind of something that I thought of while I was in the middle of cooking as an alternative use for the Velveeta cheese sauce. So I do want to try this because it was not really something I forethought before I made this video. One thing I like to do with pasta dishes after I reheat them in the microwave is just to kind of shake them up to disperse the toppings and the sauce, kind of like you're shaking a salad. I was concerned that there might not be enough cheese sauce in these, but I actually think it looks perfect. It doesn't taste like a budget meal. It definitely doesn't taste like an 83-cent meal. This one turned out amazing. If the chili cheese hash brown casserole was a 9 out of 10, then this one is definitely a 10 out of 10. That was great. Next up, let's do the pasta with meat sauce just to make sure that this is good. I don't anticipate it being great, but it is a fairly cheap and inexpensive meal. And you know, you can't really go wrong with pasta with meat sauce. So just like before, microwave it, give it a little shake, disperse all the pasta sauce in there. Looks about the same as just about any frozen lean cuisine or other types of frozen pasta dishes in a meat sauce. You could even add some Parmesan cheese or mozzarella cheese if you have any on hand. That of course just wasn't really in the budget for today. All of these ended up with kind of the perfect amount of sauce to coat the pasta and feel like it's not overly dry. And so that's the other part of it, is how I store these. Because as you can see, I took the pasta, I tossed in a little bit of oil, but the pasta was at the bottom of the container and all the sauces were just sitting on top. That will prevent the sauces from absorbing too much into the pasta and making the pasta seem dry. And that's the reason that I also cooked it the way that I did, was so that as you reheat it, then you kind of mix the sauce into the pasta so that they don't just become one with each other as they sit in the fridge. This one's good. It's easy, it's filling, it's cheap. 7 out of 10. Chili cheese pasta is my personal favorite, so let's give that a try as well. I put so much time and thought into these meal plans and how to make them taste good while being filling and not be overly boring. So that's definitely one of my goals, and I hope that this shows through in the meals we made today. I mean, the fact that I was able to take $10 and make kind of 5 different meals using the same ingredients in different ways will help a lot when it comes to integrating variety into your meals. So I hope that you guys can see that I really did put a lot of thought into this menu before I went about cooking it or buying the stuff for it. This one's good, but I feel like it could use a little bit more cheese or even some Rotel. If you have some of that in your pantry, it would be a great addition to this. Maybe I should have dispersed the cheese a little bit better. So this one's gonna be a 6.5 out of 10, 6 out of 10, somewhere along those lines. The 5th and final meal is this smoked sausage and hash brown skillet. So again, this would be a breakfast potentially. I'm gonna go ahead and shake this one up too, just to disperse the hash browns with the peppers and onions and smoked sausage and that cheese sauce that's in there. I do feel like these little hash brown meals are the smaller portions as compared to the pasta. But again, the hash brown wasn't exactly what I wanted to buy. I wanted to buy the steak cut french fries, which would have been a bigger portion, I think, than the hash browns would have been. But even if they're a little bit smaller portions, I still got 3 bonus meals out of this, so I still count that as a win. For those of you who love Clara over at Great Depression Cooking, this is inspired by her poor man's meal, but made into a breakfast style skillet. And obviously we're replacing the hot dogs with the smoked sausage, which adds a little bit more flavor to it. Otherwise, that was definitely my inspiration for this meal. I had intended to just make 3 of these sausage pepper hash brown skillets, 3 chili cheese pastas, and then 3 meat sauce pastas, and that was going to be the menu. But then I started to think about how I could potentially interchange some of the toppings between the pasta and between the hash browns to integrate some more variety. That is so good. I love how the peppers and onions kind of give it this freshness. There isn't a whole lot of fresh elements within this meal plan beyond the peppers and onions. So I definitely feel like that was my favorite part of all the meals. And this one's probably like an 8.5 out of 10. It's really good. Again, the portion is a little bit on the smaller side. I feel like this menu was an incredible success and I am so happy with it. Although there are some things that I would potentially change, I'm still working within the $10 budget, and I feel like we integrated so many good meals and variety into that and even got 3 bonus meals out of it. So I count that as a win. I am really overall happy with everything. And trust me, these will get eaten, and I'm definitely gonna freeze some of these for later as well. But I hope this was helpful to you guys. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will see you again soon.